written in Hebrew. It says, No lahasbir hadargis b'chochma v'keach hamaskel ma yeshne lefei chochma geluya, which in English means, please explain the levels in chochma, such as keach hamaskel. What levels are there before chochma geluya? So I'm just going to give you basic facts, okay? There's a lashon someplace that kol keach meireshus hamshachos atzev giluya gimel madreges. That's a quote someplace. Don't ask me where it is. Kol keach meireshus hamshachos atzev giluya shalosh madreges. Every koyach from the outset, from the moment of its birth until its full actualization, is 3 steps. Kol koyach meireshus hamshachos atzev giluya is gimel madreges. You want labels? The labels are keach atzmi, keach nelam, and keach goli, right? Or to use the fancy, what do you have in Chayisara, yeah? In Samach Vav. You have keach hiyuli ha'atzmi, you have keach hiyuli, and you have keach hagoli. Those are 3 madregas in keach. But you must understand that before you have the 3 madregas in keach, you have what's called yocheles. So really there's 4. I mean, the closest is 4 madregas. There's the madrega of Chochma. The question is asked specifically about Chochma. There's the madrega of Chochma, which is called Yecheles. And then there's 3 madregas in Chochma, which is called Koyach. Keach Atzmi, Keach Nalam, and Keach Golis. That's the answer to the question very technically. So let's talk first about the difference between the word Yecheles and the word Koyach. And then we'll talk about the difference in the 3 madregas in a Koyach. Okay? I'm sure you've heard the terms Yecheles and Koyach. They're familiar. You have this in Latin. My mother, the Friedrich, the Lashon Yecheles and the Lashon Koyach. In the Maimonim of the earlier Rabbeim, the Rebbe Rashab, you don't have so much Lashon. In some of them you have a little bit, but you don't have so much Lashon Yecheles by the Rebbe Rashab. The Lashonis are Noisei and Koilel. Again, if you know the Sprach, you are familiar with this. There's Nefesh Noisei Koiches and Koiches Haklulim B'Nefesh. Nefesh Noisei Koiches, the emphasis on the word Nefesh. That's the Madrega of Yecheles. Koiches Haklulim B'Nefesh, the emphasis is on the word Koyach. And that's the Madrega of Koyach. So let's talk about, what does Yecheles mean? Yecheles means this: the Neshama is infinite. The Neshama is Bli Gvul. The Neshama is a piece of the Eibishter. And just like the Eibishter is Bli Gvul, the Neshama is Bli Gvul. And just like the Eibishter in his Bli Gvul has no chesrenis, Hashem has everything. So the Neshama in her Bli Gvul, the Neshama in the Neshama's own Bli Gvul, the Neshama has everything. If the Neshama has everything, quote, it's not missing Chochma either, end quote. If the Nefesh is Shalom, if the Nefesh has no chesrenis, if every possible Maila that could be the Neshama has, so all of the possible Mailas that the Neshama could have is Chochma. But here's the chap. The Neshama has no parts. The Neshama has no characteristics, has no attributes. Just like Kvayochel in Elokus by the Eibishter. Hashem has no goof and has no koyach. Hashem has no pieces. So what kind of Chochma is there if you have no parts? There's Ein Seif. What's Ein Seif? Ein Seif is everything. Part of everything is Chochma also. But Chochma, which is a part of Ein Seif, is not how Chochma is a separate characteristic. It's how Chochma is a part of the Pshitas of the Ein Seif. And that's the Tach Yecheles. That's such Nefesh Noisei Koiches. Your Bli Gvul of the Neshama is not missing Chochma. But Chochma, the way it exists in your Bli Gvul of the Neshama, is not Koyach HaChochma. It's not specifically Chochma. It's how Chochma is part of the Pshitas of the Nefesh. That's called Nefesh Noisei Koiches, or Yecheles. That's the highest Madrege. After that, you have called Koyach. Koyach, I like to translate words. As a teacher, I like to translate words. The word Koyach has 3 translations. Koyach means a power. Koyach means a potential, a possibility. A potential more than possibility. And Koyach means a tool. A Koyach means a tool. You have a toolbox, and inside the toolbox is individual tools. You have a hammer and a wrench and a screwdriver and a chveis, what else you have. These are individual tools. In the Madrega of Noisei, which is the Madrega of Yecheles, there's no tools, there's just Nefesh. In the Madrega of Koyach, You have what's called in the world of Chassidus a harkova. You have two different things. You have the neshama, and how the neshama includes tools. In the madrega of Yocheles, there's no harkova. There's no two things. There's no neshama and tools. It's how the neshama has every mile. And that's the difference between Yocheles and koyach. Yocheles means the neshama has no parts, but has no chesrenis. Koyach means how in the neshama there's individual faculties, individual tools. So here's the expression. Again, these expressions are found in my Maimorim. I don't remember where, but I didn't make them up. Okay? Yocheles, you say, Eine b'mitzias b'bala Yocheles. And koyach, you say, Yeshne b'mitzias b'bala koyach. In other words, when you're talking about the Madrega of Yocheles, you're not going to say that you have two things. The owner of the Yocheles and the Yocheles for Chochma. There's only one thing, Yocheles. In the Madrega of koyach, you're going to say, Yeshne b'mitzias b'bala koyach. There's two things. There's the neshama, and then there is the koyach that's specific for Chochma. And kvayachal amayla is the same thing. We're going to speak about spheres. It's going to be the same thing. In the madrega of Yocheles, you're going to say everything is pshitos. Pshitos means there's no chesrenis, but there's no metzias in that pshitos. Mashayin in the madrega of koyach, you're going to say there's two things. There's the pshitos of elokus, and how in the pshitos of elokus you have the koyches, the tools. And there's three madregas in the tools. Keich atzmi, keich nelam, keich goli. Okay, I'm going to stop now. Does anybody want to say anything? Ask any questions?
Yocheles, there's no parts, there's just pshitos. How could there then be the next stage of Yocheles?
That's a very different question. And the answer in one word is tzimtzum. Now, how does tzimtzum work? That's another. You take a look in Koteinti. There's a Maimer Koteinti which explains tzimtzum.
But then if he's everywhere else, and there are parts in spheres.
I think you're confusing this conversation with the sugya of Achdus Hashem. We're not talking Achdus Hashem. This is Haskalah over here. This is not Haskalah. There's a Seder Ishtalshalos, right? Just like there's a Seder Ishtalshalos in Elokus, there's a Seder Ishtalshalos in the Neshama. In the highest Madregas of Elokus and the highest Madregas of Neshama, there's Pshitas. Pshitas means there's no detail. But no detail doesn't mean that it doesn't have properties, qualities, faculties, or milas. It's just that they don't exist as individual faculties. In the highest madregas of Seder Ishtalshalos.
So in the draft article it says, how does it look like before it comes and before that, like?
Okay, this is quite involved. Let's wait with that question. Okay, let's wait with that question. Okay, I'm moving on, yeah? Okay, so what I established so far is that there's two ideas. There's Chochma, which is called Noisei. It's part of the Pshitas of the Neshama, where you don't have two things, the Neshama and the Koyach. Simply how the Neshama has every Maila, and having every Maila means it's not missing the Maila of Chochma. And there's the Neshama in the Madrege of Koyches, which is called Koyches HaKlulim. Koyches means that there's two things. There's the Pshitas of the Nefesh and the Koyches. Now, in the idea that there's koyches, there's three madreges. A koyach atzmi, a koyach nelam, and a koyach goloi. Koyches atzmi, it says in Samach Vav, is very hard to explain. Because it's a contradiction. It's two opposites. Why? Because a koyach means a specific faculty. A koyach means a specific tool. A koyach atzmi means I have this specific tool on the level of etzim. Or to say it in practical terms, the koyach atzmi of Chochma is bli gvul. The koyach atzmi of Chochma is the same by everybody. It's not the difference between one person and another. So the koyach atzmi of Chochma, if it's bli gvul, and if it's the same by everybody, how is it a koyach? How is it chutz lenefesh? How is it except for nefesh? It's a good kasha. And the Maimorim, the Rebbe Rashab struggles with this. But nevertheless, this is the Metzias. The Metzias is that the first madrega of koyach, the first madrega, which is no longer pshitas ha-nefesh, but it's outside the pshitas of the nefesh, is a madrega of chichatzat. In other words, you have a tool, and this tool is infinite. It allows for infinite chochma. That's called keich atzmi. Now, let's go to the other extreme. The other extreme is the keich goloi. Keich goloi means the actual tool of chochma, which means what goes into your brain. Your brain is a physical thing. Your brain is able to reason, your brain is able to come up with new ideas, your brain is able to ask questions and give answers, because inside your brain there's the nefesh, there's the koyach of Chochma. Koyach is an inyan ruchni, which is mislabish in your moich, which is an inyan gashmi, and that's how your brain works. The koyach hagoli of Chochma is limited. It's absolutely limited. Limited means to say, first of all, you don't know. You want to find out, you want to learn, you want to discover. But you're not born knowing, you're born with the possibility to know. And second of all, it's a limited tool, means to say you can only learn one thing at a time, and you can only understand it to a limited degree, and you keep a separation between one idea of seichel and another idea of seichel and so on. So the koyach goli is a real gvul, it's a true gvul of seichel. So the koyach atzmi, as hard as it is to explain, even though it's a koyach, which means even though it's chutz l'nefesh, it's pshitas, it's bli gvul. The koyach galui is mamish gvul. What could be in between bli gvul and gvul? Sort of gvul, right? You have in Maimonim, whenever you see in a Maimon Chassidus the lashon eine kol kach, or eine gvul kol kach, or bebchinas gvul ktsas. The words kol kach and ktsas are code words for this is very hard to understand. The middle madrege keches hiyulim keches hanelamim. The lashon or the idea is they have a gvul kloli. The keach atzmi is bli gvul. The keach goli is gvul mamish. The keach hanelam is in between. It's a little bit gvul and a little bit bli gvul. Now, of course, that doesn't make any sense. You either are gvul or you are bli gvul. How could you be a little bit of both? And the answer is as follows. As they said to the Maimonim, I'm not making it up. I'm not making it up. Okay, you have this in Samach to Samach, Eresh and Zayin. And Lacheri have in Samach, it's a bigger arichas even than in Samach Vav, but I think it's also in Vavram Zaken. Hagbala Klolos means like this. It says in Chassid, it says in Chazal, there's 7 Chochmas. There's Refuah and there's Tchuna, there's 7 different Chochmas. What separates one Chochma from another Chochma is not only the material, it's the chush, it's the kind of Chochma. Some Chochmas require you to go into Behislapshus, to be very detailed. Some chochmas are very, very abstract, they're very theoretical. Different chochmas have to do with different chunas hanefesh. So it says in the Maimonim that the keach hanelam has a hagbola klolis. The middle madrega of kochas has a limitation, but only in general. Meaning to say, the limitation consists of a leaning towards one type of chochma over another type of chochma. In the madrega of keach hanelam, one person is drawn to refuah, so he's going to become a doctor. Another person is drawn to cheshbon, to become a mathematician. Another person is drawn to Haskalah, Yunis, so he's going to become a Maskal and Chassidus, Lahavdil, Elef Alfi Avdolas. But this is called the Hakbala Klos. In the Neshama, the Madreg of Keach Nelam is limited in the sense that it leans. One person's Keach Nelam leans in this direction, another person's Keach. So if you have a Chosh and Chassidus, you'll find Halacha very boring. If you have a Chosh and Halacha, you find Chassidus very meaningless. It's part of the tchun of the koyach. Your koyach hanelam, you have a nefesh, has a chush for this, that you could understand other things also. But because it's outside of your chush, it's going to be more difficult for you to understand it. So that's the way you understand it. Once you enter into the realm of koyches, which means you have something which is chutz l'nefesh. It's not just pshitos, that the nefesh in its plainness has everything, including chochma. But yeshne b'mitzias b'ba'al koyach, so kol gilim, you know where this is in the end of Samach Vav. Shmais, Hekapzu, Shmais. When you have the 3 madreges of Eren Sefer, Lefnei Tzimtzum. In the old print, it's Tov Kuf Yud Aleph. The new print, weiß ich nicht. Kol Keiches, Mereishes Amshachas, to save Yul's Gimel madreges. The first madreges, the Keiches believable. The third madreges, Keiches Gevul Mamish. The middle madreges, the Hakbala Klolis. Those are the 4 levels. Yecholos means how Chochma is part of Nefesh. And then you have 3 madregas of koiches, which is outside of nefesh, keich atzmi, keich nelam, and keich goli. Now, for the Kabbalists keeping score at home, it's like these 4 madregas in terms of ishtalshalos would be ak, and akudim, and nekudim, and brudim. Brudim is atzilas. Ak is like yechelis. Even though it's after a tzimtzum and there's kalim, it's called shemes. Ak is called shemes shabbos de gufim. Ak has kalim. But when the oil of Ak goes into the Keli of Ak, the degree of the bittul of Keli through the oil is that it doesn't exist at all. Like Yechelis. Akudim, it's Akud Bekli Echad. There is a Keli, But the Keli is an Amayim the Matzav of Beli Gavul. And again, on Akudiv, the Rebbe Rashab wonders how you could explain what this means. How you could have to understand how you could have Kelim and Pshitos at the same time. Nikudim, which is Elamatayu, this is the Madrega, this is a Moshe, the Moshe for that is the Keches Ne'elamim. And Atzilus, which is Elmatikun, is Keches Hagiluyim. That's Bekitz and Nimritz. Bekitz and Gadol. The question that I was asked is to speak about the different things of Chochma. Beklolos, that's the way it works. Now, when you learn the Maimorim, especially Maimorim the Frierdiker Rebbe, you find out that there's like in between Madregas. I'll give you just a dugma what you have in Samach Vav, yeah? You have, I just told you 4 levels. Yeah, Yecheles, there's Noisei, there's Keich Atzmi, Keich Nelam, Keich Nelam. Keich Nelam is called Chochma Shebekeser. Chochma Shebekeser means how Chochma is included in Keser, Madrega Vratza, Keich, which has a Hagbala clause. But then there's something called Keser Shebechochma. If you ever learned it, you have it in Samach Vav, but in my Maram, the Frierdiker Rebbe, Babariches, Keser Shebechochma means how it's in between the 3rd and the 4th step. It's going out of the Madrega of Keich Nelam, and it has not yet arrived the Madrega of Keich Goloi. So the Lashon of the Maimorim is, you know the Haskalah, but you don't even know yet what you know. You have a sense that the Seichel is coming from the Madrega of Helam to the Madrega of Gilui, but it hasn't yet arrived in the Madrega of Gilui, so you have it, you intuit, you have a sense of what's going to be, even though you don't have it yet. So even though Beklolos, there's 4 Madregas, between each Madrega, there's middle Madregas, because there's a Heshtalshalus, from the Madrega of Noisei to the Madrega of Koilel to the Keich Atzmi, Keich Nelam, Keich Goloi. Okay. I'm answering a question, people. You don't like the answers? Don't ask the questions. Questions or comments? This is very technical. I feel like this is not so exciting, but okay. I answered the question.
So will you come up with a set that goes through all these stages?
I would say Bepashtas, not. You learned Vavram Zok and Samach Vav, yeah? You learned Vitin Lecha Samach Vav, right? Then the same these two Maimorim, Vavram Zok and Vitin Lecha, you have at the end of the Samach Vav again. Before Shavuos, Chveis Vas, Tazir Metzera, Bechu Koisai, even Bamidbar, Bamidbar is Shavuos. It's Samach Zayin, it's a part of Hemshech Samach Vav, where he goes back and he speaks about Torah. What the Rebbe Rashab discusses, if you ever learn Samach Vav, he speaks about Leman de Daig B'Milan de Chukmes, right? That we learn something. For some people it goes easy, for some people it goes hard. And there's different madregas in hard. If you learn the Maimorim very carefully, you'll see that the Rebbe is saying that if it goes easy, it's coming from Keich Nelam. If it goes hard, it's Keich Atzmi. If you're mevarer the sigim and the pselis, the highest madrega of the biggest yigia possible, then you're megala seichel from the madrega of Yecheles. If you look carefully, you'll see how the Rebbe Rashab suggests that depending on how hard you worked on finding the emes of this dvar seichel, that's how deep into the neshama of Chochma you went. Or Yosher is from Helam to Gili. Or Chayzer is from Atzmi to Gili. But then there's also one madrega of Chayzer where you megala Chochma mamish from the madrega of Yecheles, of Oyer. But this is a madrega where you're mavarer the sigim and the pselis. In other words, when you say Dvar Seichel, there's always going to be things which could be more perfect. So usually when you're Mavad Dvar Seichel, you push them out. If you're Mavad the Sigim themselves, then you can Mavad the Madrega of Seichel, the Madrega of Yecheles. As a Kubtais for the Samach Vav, if you learn it. Any other questions, people? Okay, I just want to say one more thing before I finish this topic, okay? In Chochma, there's Kama Madregas. And this you also have in Samach Vav. I'm just going to say the names. I'm not going to explain them because I think it's enough Chochma for one night, okay? There's a Madrega in Chochma which is called Ma of Chochma. Mem Hey, Ma of Chochma. There's a Madrega of Chochma which is called the Re'iyah of Chochma, which is lower than Ma. There's a Madrega of Chochma which is called Mides of Chochma. And the Madrega of Chochma which is called Yesoid Abba, or Nekudas HaSkola. Yesoid Abba is the flash that we always talk about. In the Maimorim, they speak about 4 Madregas of Chochma. In other words, when a Chochma comes to a person from his subconscious to his consciousness, the highest thing of Chochma is Ma, where the Haskalah has connected with Bittul. The second Madrega is Re'iyah, where you see it clearly. And Re'iyah b'derech kal Madrega of Chaya, where you see it clearly, but you don't have a tfisa on it. Then the madrega of midas of chochma. Midas of chochma are different than the higher madregas that you have in Atiyah. You could say kosher or treif. But if you know the sugi of Shasik Rav, midas of chochma means you already have an Atiyah if it's kosher or treif, but you can't explain it. That's why Rav was asked a shaila halacha. Rav paskent, and his talmidim asked him a kasha on his psak din, and he didn't answer them. And b'chlal and shas, if someone says a halacha, and you ask him a question, and he doesn't answer it, someone asks you a question, and you don't answer it, that's a right that you agree that you made a mistake. And the Rebbe brings in his ha'areh that we paskin like Rav, at least in certain paskin like Rav. If Rav was quiet, Shasik Rav, Tamid Rav asked him a kasha, Rav Kana asked him a kasha, and Rav didn't answer him, the charai that Rav is made a mistake. How can we paskin like Rav? So it says in Chassidus, says in Maimorim, because Rav had a teretz. But since this came from the madreg of Midas Sheba Chochma, Midas Sheba Chochma is the higher than you say, Daf nicht das, right your hands on the table. Midas Sheba Chochma is above Yesoid. The beginning of Asis is Yesoid Abba. The beginning of a seichel that you can put into words is Yesoid. Midas of Chochma means you feel that it should be kosher or treif and you can't put it in the Asis.